I don't know why I've started thinking about this, but I was just washing the pots a few minutes ago, and as I say, I don't know why this kind of popped into my head, but it did. And I don't know, it's been quite catalytic. I was it's messy. One of the things I felt bad about when Dad was kind of delirious in that back room, at the end of the bed, the fridge freezer was just in the corridor that led up to the room that he was in. And I was making a drink, I think, for Mum, I can't remember, but I opened the fridge door, and then suddenly, with all clarity, Dad said to me, "This sounds so inane, but you'll understand why in a minute. Why it's not." He said, "Is there any ice cream in there?" And I said, I lied. And I said, "I'll have a look in a minute." When I lied, I knew that he'd kind of drift back off again. And he did. He did. He closed his eyes, and literally within seconds of asking the question, he was back in that state of delirium. It's not even the fact that I lied that's the upsetting part. At that particular stage, he was bedbound, and just a few days, it was only a day or two beforehand, we'd had to turn around to him and say, "We can't get you out of bed to use the commode anymore, Dad," because he was too unstable on his feet. And if he'd have gone over, it'd have been hospital. Worst case scenario, it'd have been hospital. And then he'd have died there, and he didn't want that. So for his own good, we kind of said no, we couldn't get him out. And that was horrible for him. That was horrible in its own right. To be able to have to turn around to your dad and say, we're going to have to roll you over when you want to pee and crap and stuff. And then when we did do that, no matter what we did, he was in agony. If we put him on the commode, he was in agony on his feet and moving around, and he couldn't sit for too long. Everything was painful for him. And rolling him was painful for him. So when he said, "Have you got any ice cream?" the nurses had said, don't worry about feeding him anymore, because he wasn't at that stage where food was going to do him any good. So we knew that, but we knew that sort of the diminished appetite meant one thing, that the end of the journey was near. So when he said, "Do you want any ice cream?" Sorry, "Is there any ice cream in there?" Immediately, my head was, if we give him it, if we feed him, if he wants a lot, he's going to need the loo. If we need the loo, he's in pain. If he doesn't need the loo, he's in pain. No matter what we did. And because I didn't want to see him in pain, it wasn't because of what he wanted. It's because I didn't want to see him in pain. It wasn't for me to decide his pain, what was an acceptable level of pain for him. That was up to him. But just at that moment in time, I took that away. And it did bother me at the time. I can't say it didn't. Because I knew. I didn't know it'd come back and get me like this, but I knew that I felt crap about saying no. Because I knew it was based. I knew I'd lied. And I knew why I'd lied. I knew I'd lied because of something I didn't want to see. It's not because of something he couldn't handle, but because of something I didn't want to see. Oh. I've cried about Dad dying, of course I have. I've cried at the time. And I don't know, but this... I haven't sobbed like I have with them about this. I don't know why this is... I do know why. Like I just said, I've been comfortable with everything that I've done and every decision that I've made. Because everything I did, I felt like I did for his best interest and because it was something he wanted. The worst thing is, because I felt crap about it at the time, I did actually, at a later point, give him some ice cream. And he did only take a mouthful. It was just the flavour he wanted, just something to probably take away the crap taste that was in his mouth. But yeah, obviously that would have been knotting me up, and I hadn't noticed it. And it needed to come out. Oh. It just took me a bit by surprise, did that. I think I said right in the very first video about this, about there being selfish thoughts and so on, and those are the ones that have the potential to do you the most damage. Which is why it has to be out. There were lots of little things about his final days that Jeanette and I struggled with. Some of the decisions that were made, Jeanette struggled with, and she went on to further question those with the nurses. There was one in particular which I can't remember off the top of my head. But for her, conscience, good conscience, she felt that she needed to question that, which is good. I'm glad she did. But yeah, when it got to a point where he couldn't swallow his medication, his tablets, and so we got quite a lot of them in liquid form, and we were told which ones could be crushed and delivered in liquid form. But then he even started struggling with liquids, and so you then become the person that also withholds the medication. But then obviously there comes a point where they're just not conscious enough to take it anyway. But the food one, that was a difficult one. It felt like he ought to be on a drip or something, but again, you're just prolonging an inevitable outcome. I know that we did our best. I know that we did our best. But I do feel bad about the fact that I lied to him at that moment in time. Sorry, I'm just catching fruit flies from my plants. Did get to have got to tell him that I loved him. In between one of these little moments, it was in between the states of delirium, and it was just like this little moments of clarity where I could see him, I could see the man I knew behind his eyes. And I told him I loved him, and his very weak arm reached round my back, patted me on the shoulder, and he mouthed it. He could barely speak at the time. He mouthed that he loved me too. I'm so glad that I was paying attention to him, and that I happened to catch those changes in his breath in the last hour or two, and that I went and spent some time just with him, holding his arm, telling him we were going to be alright, telling him my mum was going to be alright. And I'm so glad that I noticed the changes in his breathing, and that I was able to get everybody round him. It's not a nice thing watching somebody pass away, especially not somebody that you love and care about. This is the second person I've watched go out in this kind of slow way. Whilst part of it feels like a privilege, it's still horrible. And beautiful and horrible is beautiful because it couldn't happen. they couldn't reach that point without so many wonderful things happening before it got to that point. You know, their whole lives. But also tragic because of the hole it leaves in your own, your own personal life. I think I better stop yammering. Blow my nose and eat a biscuit.